internet is hardwired. The power to the laptop is connected. I think this is going to be the first stream where I just get busy from the start. Welcome to the chat room, everybody. I have some marching orders ahead of me for the next couple of weeks. Thankfully, Eric Reynolds from Fantagraphics is like an A1 editor and organizer. I asked him earlier, you know, where should I divide my time? Like, I was working on issue 5. That's what I've been streaming this whole time. Like, what are the deadlines for issue 2? What are the deadlines for getting issue 1 completely wrapped up? And the aforementioned comic that will cost you 0 cents in the comic shop when the time comes. What are the deadlines for that sucker too? And it turns out that a lot of these deadlines very tight, very, very tight. So I have a lot of work ahead of me for like a February 18th deadline. And what I'm working on right now is the cover for the second issue, the June 2021 issue of Red Room. And off the bat, and you'll probably hear me say it several times throughout the stream, but by the time I turn the camera off today, this image isn't going to look like much. If you take a look at the thumbnail for this video, you see that hooded figure and the binary code behind him and through the shadow of the face. That's going to be basically the motif of this cover that I'm working on. Let me see here. Straighten that up a touch. The difference is going to be that my guy Poker Face is going to be in the silhouette. In order to get that binary code to show in the background and in the shadow of the face, I have to add those black areas in digitally. So it's going to look half finished, and it's just you're going to see the outline of the shapes. Finite Joy, thanks for pre-ordering Red Room issue 1. Working on the cover for the second issue right now. I hesitate to call it issue 2 because there will be no distinctions that way on the covers or anything for these. Think of them all as one-shots. And issue 2, the June issue, is going to introduce the first Poker Face story, who, just from the stuff I've been posting on my social media channels, you know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that, this Poker Face character is the one that a lot of people seem to have latched on to already. There are a couple people who have Poker Face tattoos as we speak, and I think this issue is going to be a big one. As I was saying before in the previous streams, the idea with Red Room is to introduce this problem. And the problem is that people are gathering together on the dark web, pledging money to have the people on the webcam stream process their requests. Not unlike, I don't know, some kind of cam girl website or something like this. The difference being here is that it's snuff footage that's being broadcast. There's a masked murderer who has a victim in their possession, And there are some anonymous sick creeps who are pledging Bitcoin and asking said murderer, torturer to do various levels of ill things to the corpse, or well, to the future corpse, I guess I should say. I guess you could say. So the first issue is about initiation. The one that you have pre-ordered, it's about initiation, kind of answering the question like, where do these people even come from? Who are these murderers? How does one even participate in such a thing? How do they get the word out? How do they not get in trouble? What's the infrastructure behind such a crazy operation? What are the rewards of such a sick, twisted enterprise? Other questions get answered. Now, you can imagine this would be a big industry, and there are many competing businesses. A little bit of that is broken down, and you see a cameo appearance of this poker face character in there. And each of the businesses operates in a different way. They have their own strengths. So this issue, one of the questions that will be answered is, where does one procure the victims, and how do they not get in any trouble once these videos are discovered? You know, like if you can identify the victim of the atrocities, maybe you could then do some backtracking to help potentially detect, you know, the bad actor. Well, that's yet another, you know, dark thing I had to kind of think about in a lot of ways, to try to imagine how one would, you know, evade detection. So that's what this issue will be about. I think this is going to be a cool cover. Got to get it in real soon because things have to go to Diamond several months ahead of time. And for those who don't know, Diamond is the major distributor for comic books. The way it works is this catalog comes out 3 months ahead of time with the merchandise that will be available, you know, in 3 months. So you got to get this work in way early. The issues are all complete. Done all the stories for the first trade paperback. So that's not a problem. But I just, with every page I draw, I just become a better artist. So I like to think about the covers for a long time and do those last because I'm just a better artist at that time. You know, since I drew issue 2, I think I've drawn about 120 pages of comics, and if you don't learn a couple of tricks in 120 pages, you might have some kind of a disability or something. The issue of previews that Red Room issue 1 is going to be in has just gone to press, like today. So it's going to be in that next issue, I'm assuming. And then that's when I bang that drum hard and tell everybody who hasn't pre-ordered to get on the ball and tell their store ASAP to order some copies. Max Height, thanks for that super chat. Max asks, why Fantagraphics and not someplace else? In a lot of ways, I think Fantagraphics is just the greatest comic book company. They put out the best material. So it's a good pantheon to be a part of. That's one. Two, Fantagraphics and I have done amazing business together for almost 10 years, which is ridiculous to think about. Time really flies. And I know their style, they know my style. I like that they're not corporate. I could talk to the guys at the top in 2 seconds. I could text them right now, and they will probably get back to me within, if not immediately, within a couple of minutes. That is something that you don't get with just any publisher. So I'm very thrilled to work with Fantagraphics on Red Room. Alright, so this logo will be chopped up, cut out, and the line will be in red. The blade will be without color, but there will be some color texture. Put like a very white looking newsprint underneath it to just add some flavor. Yeah, probably going to draw some variation of the logo each time. I like seeing it on the board there. But this background will be all black with binary code running up and down the thing. That text will probably be in green. The logo will be in red, and then I think the heart and the diamond will be in red. And then I'll have the spade and club in a kind of a black. It was like almost like a gray. I'm trying to think of what tools I'm going to use. Well, you know what? I'll start with this hand. That'll be a dip pen piece. Not going to be too long of a stream, this one. This is a fairly easy, quick job, because a lot of the work is going to have to be in the digital part, and there will be more lettering that I just do on separate paper and then kind of paste over top. Who uses dip pens out there? And who's curious about it? Giving them a try. I have some thoughts to get you started that I wish I would have heard when I was getting started with the dip pens. One of the main ones is that if you've observed closely, you gotta like move the paper and make all of the strokes like pulling strokes toward yourself, because you just can't push, or else you'll just get a splatter everywhere. And I've seen that a lot with people who just try it out to start. It's a different kind of like way of thinking, because you're used to just doing whatever you want with your pen, with your fine liners or whatever. And you just gotta pull these lines towards you. Not too big of an adjustment to make once you realize that's the requirement. I'm using the G pen, the tool of the mangaka. made famous by Manben and the manga Bakuman. The benefit of the dip pen is you could just, even right here, you could see what I'm talking about. Super thick lines, super thin lines, variation. The thing about a lot of the fine liners is that now there are exceptions. There are people who are great at it. Number one who comes to mind would be Matt Allison, cartoonist who does Kenkor, who could get some amazing thick and thins out of his tools. Matt Lesniewski, another guy who uses who uses microns and can get a lot of variation. Lots of people create a very dead line. That's kind of an uninteresting line with the markers, fine liners, and certainly the rapidograph is the deadest line of them all. Aesthetically, sometimes that might be what you want to go for. I think of a daily comic strip like Dilbert, right? It's about a very dry subject matter. So you could use a very dry, dead line for that kind of material. If you want your comics to be more than just, iconography, you want to get some soul. You want to get some soul into the art. Some of your hand. Martin D from Montreal. Thanks a lot for showing up. With a name like that, you better have been from Montreal, man. That's French Canadian if I ever heard it. Any leads on snagging G pens here domestically? Yeah, I guess Jet Pens is a place to go. You could find them easy. I'm just going to bounce around here. And what I have to stay mindful of, what I have to stay conscious of, is this has to stay blank, with the exception of just the outlines of the shapes of the card suits here, because I will put those black areas in digitally so that I could add my binary code, almost like the Matrix. Think about that. Like I said, the thumbnail for this video was that's a panel that's going to appear in that aforementioned comic that should cost $0.00. And I like that aesthetic. Also, what I use social media for a lot, my Instagrams and stuff, is to just kind of put imagery out there, see what the response is. And when I put that panel out, it got a lot of good feedback. So that tells me that could be a good sales tool. And that's what a comic book cover is. Before Cartoonist Kayfabe, there was a podcast that I participated in with Jim. I was kind of the third wheel, called Tell Me Something I Don't Know. And I was doing this graphic novelist residency for a couple of weeks in Columbus, Ohio, staying at old cartoonist James Thurber's boyhood home. And while I was out there, I wanted to try to get maximum use out of the experience for Tell Me Something I Don't Know purposes. We did a podcast interview with Jeff Smith, the cartoonist who did the Bone comics. And he said something that just has always stuck with me about constructing the comics. And the sort of big takeaway was that he said everything inside the covers is is art. But the covers, the sort of package that your comic comes in, that's the commerce portion. You know, that's the sales mechanism. This is what has to jump off the shelves, catch your eye, and you know, attract a future reader. And I'm not one for listening to, you know, book learning college professors if they don't, you know, have application into what it is they're talking about. So just, I'll take my information from the most extremely successful players in the game. You know, Jeff Smith tells me something like that, that will stick in my head forever. So like I said, this is a multitasking stream today. While I'm putting together this second cover, we're hustling that first issue's pre-orders. So if you haven't done so, hit that link. Make sure that you reserve your copy right now if you're here in the States. I know that the shipping cost is pretty high for people across the pond and even in Canada. So with that in mind, when the time comes, you know, next month, make sure that you reserve your copy in your local comic shop. They'll be able to order it and handle that freight charge for you, so you don't have to pay that shipping cost. Yes, we were talking Beavis and Butthead last night on the channel. Absolutely. I was thinking about a bunch of songs and stuff, music videos that remind me of that show. I don't know if that little sound gets picked up on the microphone, but that's a part of the experience for me when it comes to drawing. I like that noise, you know? You don't get that on your Wacom tablet. You don't get to see this wet ink line dry before your very eyes. It almost dries like seeing a fuse get lit. It's just dry like that. You know, you see it happen right before your eyes. It's very cool. And it's the sound, like when that sound, at this point now, I know when the pen needs to be changed because of the sound. If it loses that integrity, that means that just from the constant strain of pushing and flexing these nibs, just the integrity of the metal is getting softened up, and that means usually that the lines that will be put on the page are thicker than if you had a fresh nib. And sometimes that's valuable, sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. I'm opting to draw this cover on like an 11x17 piece of paper also because, like I said before about the salesmanship of the issue, just drawing it bigger will make it look better once it's reduced, tighten things up. One of the great covers that Jim has done, of which, you know, 100% of them are, is the Aphrodisiac cover. We were talking about that during last recording session, and it's just this like very blown up image of the protagonist. I asked him how big was the original, and he was like that. You know, he drew it super super small. Unbelievable, unbelievable that he would have the balls to blow it up that way, and have, you know, the dots show up that big. And just an incredible artist. I'm super freaking lucky. You know, I'm the runt of the litter when it comes to the Pittsburgh crew. You know, like when I started hanging out with Tom and Jim, I was like 21, still living at home with mom. And those dudes, they were like married men. Like, I think Jimmy was like 26. Tom's a bit older than him, 27. Maybe Tom was 28. And that's kind of how I prefer it in a lot of ways, man. Like, give me all your information. I have no problem being, you know, the third best cartoonist in the room or something like that, because that just means I'm gonna learn a lot, and I have no problem with that at all. I'm gonna take all your information and apply it to my own craft. It's when it started to become a little bit of a trip, when I was no longer the puppy. Time flies when you do this comic stuff, man. You do the same practice day in, day out. The cool thing about the G pen right now is that the strength of the metal, there's several reasons. I could still get the same line that I'm familiar with the Hunt 102 nib. Better holder, preserves your hand for much longer. Like, I had to reduce myself to putting one of those like little elementary school hand grip things because this pen holder sucks fucking dick. The metal is stronger. It lasts longer. I was able to get maybe 10 pages out of a nib, out of my last nib, and that would never be possible with the Hunts. Also, the engineering of the nib is way smarter, where you see these little die cut pieces. It holds more ink than the Hunt 102. So it just saves on the dipping. And when you're doing page in, page out, I think I have about 170 pages of this done. At a certain point, shaving off seconds in the process, compounded over 170 pages, all of a sudden you're saving real time. Yeah, it was really fun recording that Batman Year One episode. I'm just using shit India ink, just Speedball ink. It's better than Higgins, though. Yeah, the original four color of Batman Year One is sort of everything I want in a color comic of that kind, of, you know, of that superhero stuff. And but Richmond Lewis, you know, she could do no wrong. Like, she was going for something, and she achieved what she wanted, I'm sure. But you know how people cry about, like, the movie ruined the comic for me. Like, we don't play that game here, you know. Still got the four color joint, still got the newsstand comic. Uh, Both can exist. Yeti Punk asks if there are differences between India ink brands, and there definitely are. Can't articulate the different. I mean, what it comes down to ultimately is just opaqueness, how temperamental it is with the tools that you use, that sort of stuff. And everybody has their own answer to it. So the way that you would have to figure that out is to just play with different inks and see what you like. You gotta remember, this is art. This ain't science. Got to try to make sure to close as much of these shapes as possible. They'll just save me a little time when it comes to putting the black in digitally in the background. Just using the pen for the boldest shapes. The boldest lines, I should say. Then I'll go in with the Copic fine liners and have at it. Look at this mean knife. Spent the day looking at a bunch of old school paperback covers, exploitation movie posters, just lurid imagery. Because let's face it, we're making a lurid comic book here today. Maz seems like he would be a great teacher. There's a couple amazing lectures on YouTube, and it's just like pearls of wisdom coming out of his mouth every 2 seconds. I've not seen the movie Singapore Sling. Good stuff. Last night I watched a flick called The Strangers. Liv Tyler. That was a good one. Almost no words were said. The only talking happened in like the first act. Then I heard there was a sequel, so I'm gonna have to check that out. Doubtful I'll do that tonight because I feel like I'm gonna be grinding pretty long. Not on the stream, but it's gonna take a long time to fuss around with this digitally. Singapore Sling, one of the most disturbing things you ever saw. That piques my interest. Obviously, that's the spirit of this comic in a lot of ways. That's super cool to hear that the sequel to The Strangers is potentially better than the OG, because I thought it started out strong. And I'll be honest, you know, similar spirit in some ways to this comic, in as much as don't expect just desserts for the villains of Red Room. This ain't about law enforcement. This ain't a procedural comic to illustrate how the good guys catch the bad guys. If you want that, stick to your other monthly jobber comics from the big two, because this is definitely not it. When designing my Red Room killers, one of the big thoughts in my mind is wanting to come up with designs that you can create from a simple trip to, I don't know, the Army Surplus Store or Dick's Sporting Goods or Walmart or something. I really want to see cosplayers rocking this shit, man. So our boy here, Poker Face, is just wearing some football pads with some LOD type spikes on them shits. I have no idea how cosplayers make their kind of spandex masks and stuff, but you'll figure it out. Next time there are cons, I love the idea of seeing Poker Faces walking around next to Deadpools. Yes, Salo or Salo, however that's said. That's a good one. Saw that one last summer. Saw that Grip, you know, like I saw that. I saw Serbian Film. It's all that ridiculous stuff. part of putting these lines down right now is a little procrastination, trying to think of like what tool I'm going to use for the knife, but I think I'm actually going to use a marker for the holding lines at the edges, because you're not going to see those lines. It's going to be a black background, so if they're a little static, it won't matter. The sharpness is what is going to matter. It's going to be a very, very, very busy couple of weeks. And I say that, and it's not like the deadlines are going to let up anyhow. It's just I have definite deadlines coming up in about 2 weeks, and some of them are kind of major. I have to get at least 8 more pages together, plus a cover for one issue. This has to be done. This is the first deadline for February 16th or something. But that doesn't mean I wait till February 16th to do February 15th to do the thing. Do it ahead of time. My sort of modus operandi has always been get the work done early and then fuss with it for all the rest of the time that I have available, and just micromanage it and tweak and fuss. So that's where we're at here. If you're connected with me on Instagram, you'll see the final result of this, but not right away. It'll be a couple weeks, because I'll put kind of my version together, show it to Fanta. They have the top designers in comics. Show it to Keeley, show it to Jacob, see what they have to say about it. Is there connectivity in the books? Not in story, but maybe reoccurring character, dark web server, something? Yes. Think of it like Sin City, where Marv will appear in subsequent stories, and if Marv is dead in the first one, but you see him in A Dame to Kill For, then you know that Dame to Kill For must take place before the events of the first Sin City. That's what we're playing with here. You know, Sin City's a model, Stray Bullets is a model. I love that idea of bouncing around, creating a universe. So, while these are singular stories, they do take place in the same planet. And the pages that you might have been seeing me work on the past couple of streams for issue 5, the characters from issue 1 are the focus of that issue as well. Got all this wet ink that I gotta make sure I don't dip my hand in. Did I watch Martyrs? Yes, I did, and really dug it. Really dug it. I was said it before, like felt like it was kind of in sync with the creators in some ways. because some of the things that are in Red Room, specifically even Red Room issue 1, are played around with a touch in Mortars as well. Underground bunkers, stuff like this. So I felt like we were sharing similar influences or something. So while I wait, let some of that stuff dry. And once again, this line is going to be underwhelming, but the background will be black, so you're just going to get the contour anyhow. Wanted to leave a little space up here for some sort of text element. When it comes to the comic magazines, like, I want them to feel like comic magazines, you know, like a lot of weird typography, a lot of bluster, a lot of hyperbole. Stan the Man did a couple things right in his day for sure. That'll be a mean weapon to get pierced with. Thing about the Copic marker ink is that it stays wet for a long time too. So I gotta bounce around a little bit. But that's cool. I'd like to get this part done ASAP. I've not seen Bone Tomahawk yet, but that has come up in the chat a couple of times, so when something gets repeated enough, it gets kind of burnt into the neural center, you know? I'll have to check that out. Ed, is the serial killer from the early Red Room drafts still one of the killers in the comic? Yes. Yes. That early draft will eventually be published. so you could see the things that I retained in the final version and how things were different. I don't think it's a bad comic at all. It's just very different than what Red Room grew into being. When I made that first version, I was very much of the mindset to, give the ladies in my life, my sister, my mom, let them see what some serial killer stuff is. Because when they were on that Dexter tip, and I checked that out, I'm like, nah, this is goofy. This ain't no serial killer shit. I'll give you some serial killer shit. Francis Judge, thanks for that pre-order through the Beguiling. Red Room issue number 1. One of the great comic shops in the world. Toronto represent. I watched a lot of that Hannibal show, but then it started to bore me. Whenever the main dude got out of jail and knew that Hannibal was a bad guy and that whole thing happened, that took me completely out of it. Got really bored with it really fast, but I held tight for all of the second season. Watched a couple eps of the final season and was just like, yeah, fuck it. Because even watching the first season, there were many kind of jump the shark moments, but I just kind of was inspired by some of the outlandish atrocities in there. But ultimately, I was like, okay, man, you get no more. You get no more Eddie P time. My time is money, man. I can't be putting up with nonsense. Ravenous, gonna make note of that. Francis, is Killer on the Road? Is that a film, book, TV show? Well, I do the actual drawing. I would definitely appreciate any cool book recommendations, things that I could grab off of Audible. Just hang tight, listen while putting in the pencil mileage. I did see True Detective and really liked that first season a lot. I watched it very recently, actually. Not that I think it's like so great or anything, but I absolutely love the rapport between McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and there is a lot from it that I like. The storytelling is very cool. It really captured my. They sold it so well ahead of time. When you see haggard ass Matthew McConaughey, and then like the flashbacks to his, prior to that, you had to watch that show to just figure out what the hell happened to this poor bastard. Masterful. Great stroke. kind of decide some vague horizon for these kinds of shapes. Yeah, Planet Terror is awesome. There's a lot of just grindhouse spirit to this comic. These stories are tongue-in-cheek in a lot of ways. I'm not trying to play them for camp, but it's also, not to be taken super duper seriously. I'll use duo shade on the gloves and the main character, so that'll be just like a page texture color, like a paper texture color. I'm really into using like a limited palette for a lot of this. Pretty sure that these lines wouldn't show up anyhow. They're outside of the image area. But better have too much than too little. No, I don't think I'm gonna stream duotone application because that's just done digitally, and like I don't understand enough of this AV stuff to sort of make that work. Then I'll cut like white in there to just that said, Jimmy and I are going to do a duotone video because we have a couple of sheets. So the idea will be draw something fresh, show you guys how those black lines like emerge right before your eyes, sort of like we were discussing on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episode. A lot of the work is going to be done in duotone on these hands, but there's still a little bit of depth that I can put together in ink here. No, I don't really look at reference like from comics in any way. Like I was looking at weird paperback book covers and exploitation movie posters. But sometimes, like, I'll do obvious comic book riffs at times, and we'll definitely look at comics for that stuff. So I think, like, with this knuckle, there should be, like, I'm not sure how long I work on the layout pencil part. I just keep messing with it until I come up with something that I like. Even though I do have some very rigid deadlines here, like there's still plenty of time where I don't have to hack, so I don't clock myself. There'll be tones up here too. Duotone. Still very wet there. Alright, I'll do that other part of the knife for now. Alright. Gotta add some black areas. These areas are small enough that it's okay if no binary code is seen in these shadows. This is a different story, in fact. Okay, I'll just do that. Something else. Gotta make sure that shape is closed off so that I can just drop in the black, drop in the binary code. This is when it's time to just start adding depth to the piece. Anthony, thanks for ordering the Outlaw Comics shirt. You know, the only time I have been playing video games lately is before Jimmy gets here, when we record in the morning, and it's always something simple. So it'll be like F-Zero, you know, something that I could just turn off. Mario Kart for SNES. Man, that is still wet. I think. Yeah, it's definitely still wet. It's fucking with me, man. It just wants me to put my hand in it. Nice, Anthony. Thanks a lot, man, for pre-ordering Red Room. In fact, if you guys are new to the room, new to the streams, hit up that pre-order, make that shit happen. We're selling thousands of them ahead of time before we even hit the print button on the damn comics. Alright. Do this bottom part of the blade. Let's make it kind of mean. There used to be these kind of blades. My cousin, who I used to hang out with a bunch, he would get those like black belt magazines and karate magazines. And in the back, he definitely order weird weapons. And they would have these like scary ass combat knives. I mean, they have to just be showpieces. Yeah, he would get throwing stars. I remember for Christmas one year he got a blowgun with blow darts, and we went over to his house to visit on Christmas. So the day that he got the damn toy, well, it's not a toy, but you know what I'm saying. The day that he got it, we're messing around with it, kind of getting bored, getting adventurous with it, and of course, by the time it was time to come in, his pops observed the blowgun and was like, "Why is there a missing dart on your blowgun?" Because it had like little areas that you could hold the darts, and he confessed because one of the blow darts is up on the roof. His dad got real mad that we were shooting that shit up in the sky. It took no time at all, too, by the way. Like, probably after like 5 times of shooting the cardboard box that was in front of us, we had to see what could be done with those blow darts. Yeah, those blowgun pins are super long. This is going to look really cool when I have the duotones applied too, because it'll be like several layers of gray to just like really sell the 3D. Yeah, those lawn darts, I remember clear as day, like when I first saw them, discovered them, I thought they were the coolest things ever, and like the next week they were outlawed. I'm not saying it took a week, I'm saying it took however long it took me to find out about them, and then when I wanted to get some, they were done. But you just think about like all the weird stuff that sort of has been out in the wild, man, that just child safety was certainly like an afterthought. You know, I even think about like creepy crawlers, man, where you're playing with molten plastic. And we're talking like several generations of creepy crawlers. You know, my uncle had a set that was full of, like, you know, lead trays and stuff. And something tells me that you burn yourself on those just the same as the later ones. If you guys watch the RoboCop Terminator conversation, I was talking to Jimmy about I started having suppressed memories come back, man, after thinking about, and I haven't thought about the RoboCop toys like in a million years, but while we were doing that show, I was just trying to imagine like what Walt Simonson could have used for reference. And then I remembered those RoboCop toys where you could put these like caps, like those rolled caps in the back, and it was like a firing pin, like a hammer to a gun on his back, and you would the sparks would fly back and burn your hand like 2 out of 5 times probably. Nah, the He-Man toy that sparked, that was like a more contained spark. I had that thing too. I'm talking about the RoboCop joint was faulty, man. If it wasn't even designed to cause trouble to the little kids that were playing with it. Those weird knives from those black belt magazines would have these holes in them in the blade like this too. This will be slick on the cover because you'll see in this part you'll see the binary code through there. Hit that with the duotone when the time comes. What's up, Bryce? Welcome to the stream. No blood on the blade because we want the Red Room logo to stand out. But we'll have some blade tarnish. You know, like it's been used a couple of times. Well, if Spawn 9 gets reprinted after all the litigation, that just means that Neil Gaiman will get his piece. Or not, you know, like, we don't know what their settlement is. And once again, there's going to be extra duotone and stuff on this blade to just sell the kind of rusty scariness of it. Just make it an ominous looking tool. But got to give that Red Room logo lots of room to breathe. Wow, that's pretty cool. There's not even the Dave Sim issue in the trade. What's up, Tom? Welcome to the stream. Enjoy your comic book lettering. Put lots of thought into it, man. It's very important. I always feel like a lot of creators just dash out that part, and it's like, that's the part we're reading, guys. Come on. Choose a good font if you're going to do it digitally. Choose a font that's complementary to the artwork. Look at good examples of lettering that have come before you, and add to it. Add to the mixture. Yeah, thanks, David. Uh, it would be incredible to have some kind of like super beautiful, like ornate McFarlane toy type treatment for some of these characters. Even if there's just one for me. All right, close this shape off immediately. Start adding some fun stuff to the spikes. It all should just start coming little bits more into focus. With each of these little pieces, I just try to think of like what is it, you know? And this is sort of like that padding, you know, there's like foam or something in there. You know, this would be like a leather. then I also think there will be duotone on there, and it'll be kind of white in the middle to give it a shine. That's the thing, when we're hearing these streams, like, what you get to see really is half the piece. Sometimes I would say 3/4, but you know what I'm saying. This is in deeper, so I'll have the shadow go down a little further than I would here. In there. Kind of a plastic. Is it anthology style, or are there reoccurring characters? And the answer is both. Singular stories, but sometimes the characters will show up. Like Pokerface makes a cameo appearance in issue 1. We expand on his story in issue 2. I have another Pokerface story that I might do after the one I'm working on right now. I had to put issue 5 on hold because of these impending deadlines that are coming down the pike that are like, that'll be here before I know it. Including this right here. In fact, this is the most pressing deadline. Have to get this in 2 weeks. So I like to get the kind of the principal work done as early as possible, so that I can fuss and fuck off and play around with it until the final moment when Eric and the good people at Fanta are like, gotta send it off, Ed. Give it to me. Poor guy has a couple of studs on the outfit. Kind of adorns it like a punk rocker, you know, who gets their first Wilson leather motorcycle jacket and goes to studsandspikes.com. Speaking from experience, man. We actually had an intern. We had a Kayfabe intern last summer. That was a big help, actually. Film student. Did some editing for us. By the way, Poker Face's shoulder pads, it's beyond Thor's costume, where Kirby will sometimes draw 4 circles, sometimes 6 on that front piece. Like, these shoulder pads never look the same twice, man. It actually doesn't matter. Like, obviously, panel to panel, I try to keep them close. But I'm selling the idea that these people are successful and probably have a lot of kills under their belt, so it would stand the reason they would change their outfits every now and then. Ric Flair had a couple of robes. You dig? Doing our image founding fathers metal texture on these little circle studs. Got to. these suckers a little depth. I think this is too bold an instrument for the shadows I want on the spikes. So we'll switch that up. Alright, this section is raised up, so the idea should be that this section is raised up as well. Alright. Back to our little metal sphere shading. Yeah, Matt Lesniewski's fantastic. Jimmy did an intro for his book, The Freak, from Ad House. If you haven't got your hands on that, do yourself a favor. But Matt is an incredible cartoonist. Yeah, the thing about that is that it's just him drawing. So you gotta see what his comics are like when he's handling everything. You know, that's the real shit. a sec. Boom. Hit that pre-order for issue 1 as you watch issue 2's cover materialize before your eyeballs. Before my eyeballs as well. Just griming it up a touch. This will definitely be duotone. That's sort of what I do whenever I'm inking, knowing that there's like another layer of finish that's going to be on the thing. Like I'm assessing where the color placements will be and such. But since this is mostly like just the color that's going to exist will be the red logo, red on the heart and diamond, a kind of a black for the spade, and then green binary code behind. But there's going to be a lot of duotone application, and thinking about where I'm going to separate the shapes when that time comes is a thought that is constantly on my mind during this stage. David, I haven't read Gantz, and it came highly recommended by my friends in Japan when I was out there. So that's yet another blind spot. I'll have to get on the board with that. Get on the ball. Power Comics represent. Add the Power Comics YouTube channel to your subscription base. The crew over there definitely speak on comics that Jim and I hold near and dear. Dreamweaver more than John Tar, but don't tell the John Tar guy we said that. Or I said that. I ain't gonna speak for Jimmy. I like the idea of almost even making these shoulder pads like regal, you know, like it's a cloak of royalty. Coat of arms. Mm, 2 hours. Hour 57. Longer than I thought it would be. I thought it would take 2 hours to draw this whole piece. But we're almost there. Another thing I have to think about is the lettering. Like, what should I have here? Like some kind of burst or something. Some of the stuff that's important for me to communicate is the self-contained issue element. You know, self-contained story. That's so important to me. There'll be some language about introducing Poker Face. I don't know if this is coming through, but I'm having a fucking ball right now. This is a lot of fun. Bill says he saw the coked up LOD shit that I was talking about, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. A couple 300-pound muscle heads, man, with crazy haircuts, snorting some kind of powder. And then doing do-si-do afterward. Scarier than any kind of Candyman movie. Because you don't know what those guys could do. Can't trust them. Favorite wrestlers? Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody. Those guys that'll jack a dude up. Stan Hansen's probably tops. Just he had more of a career. I saw him more. I only saw Bruiser Brody on tapes and stuff. Roddy Piper's super high on the list, absolutely. Absolutely. Great on the mic. Maybe the greatest wrestler on the mic. Either him or Ric Flair. Those pads are coming along. Good mean knife up there. If I saw this on the stands, I would buy it. Doink and dink. Yeah, Terry Funk was amazing. I still remember watching one episode of WCW where, was it Ric Flair puts a bag over his head? They would definitely go to the extreme. Can't imagine moms were too happy to see that on TV Saturday morning. Oh, he put the bag over Flair's head. It's all murky. It's funny that TBS would be mad at that, because that kind of stuff is like what made me notice that product. I always thought of that as like the boring wrestling in a lot of ways when I was a little dude like that, just because it's like, what? You throw a dude off the top rope and he's disqualified? All those Bill Watts rules. And the video was cheaper looking. But when the Road Warriors jab a spike into Dusty's eye, or Terry Funk puts a bag over top of Ric Flair's face, it chokes him out, I'm going to take notice. So funny, I don't even think any of this is going to be seen on the printed page. Yeah, George the Animal still played an amazing Tor Johnson. Who else would be able to, you know? You even watch like the legit Plan 9 whenever Tor's wearing the contact lenses, like it looks like George the Animal still.
I always thought that Ron Perlman would be a good Tom Waits in a biopic. What's up, John? Welcome to the stream. Who was wasn't one of the Fratellis from the Goonies? Wasn't he not Richie Aprile, but the one dude from Sopranos? Ralphie. I saw Goonies not too long ago, and I was like, whose voice is that? And once again, the way this is going to work is there's going to be silhouette in the back, silhouette in the face. I'm going to put that in digitally because I'm going to have binary code running through the background, because you want to communicate that the computer's involved and murder's involved. So you need both things for Red Room.
Buster, thanks for pre-order in Red Room. If you haven't done so already, hit that button. Pre-order some Red Room comics for yourself. We want thousands of them accounted for before we even hit the print button. Gives us a good idea on how many of those things to print. My stuff always goes into reprints really fast. And speaking of which, if you haven't checked out my hip-hop stuff, the box sets or whatever, they just hit the reprint button on those too. I think hip-hop 1 is going in its like 10th or 11th printing. That's pretty cool. Not a bad day at the office. It's going to be about time to start doing some digital stuff on this now. Yeah, the box sets are getting a reprint. Right now they're going for like $200 on eBay, which is crazy. But everything's getting reprinted just in prep for this, you know, like when you got a new book that comes out, it sort of bolsters the sales of all the previous, and Fanta just wants to be prepared. But they've been meaning to reprint the box sets, period. That's a mean set of shoulder pads, ladies and gentlemen. That's a mean knife. Alright, I think it's going to be time to handle some digital stuff. Kayfabe crew, I want to thank you guys for coming through. New videos every single day. If you haven't hit the bell on the subscribe, hit it. I know that it doesn't let everybody know when a stream is going down, but it you're in the running, put it that way. This is going to be, I would say I'm less than halfway for putting this cover together, because there's going to be some typography that I'm going to sort of paste up later. But this is all I'll be able to do for now. So keep in mind, give it a couple of weeks, and you'll see what the final version of this looks like. It'll be pretty cool. Anyhow, be good. Have a good night. Stay out of trouble. Wash your hands. And see you later.